Hello, everybody. Welcome to Just Talking. I have my co-facilitator with the Grief Recovery Method, Heather Lacey, here today. Yay. Hi, Heather.
Hey.
And today's topic is going to be the emotional soup that grief can be. So one of the things that's interesting, and one of the things that I think is the biggest challenge when it comes to people acknowledging things as grief, is because you can feel happy, sad, angry, joyful. You can be bawling while you're laughing. You can be anything and everything. And one of the other things is when it comes to things like, say you've just left a job. So this isn't even a death where you can actually track the progress. You'll find yourself just getting weepy at times, or, thinking of people that you used to work with, or any kinds of different thoughts, because really what grief is a change to, or the end of, a familiar pattern of behavior. So when it comes to this change, like the two challenges. Number one, we all think that it's this 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, sadness, bargaining, acceptance. And there's something that we need to keep in mind, and that is, a lot of times anger is just a shell for sadness, right? So it's because and I know sometimes our sadness is a shelf because we're scared of that anger, and we're scared of that. And again, this is the different levels that we have when we come to our emotional expression. And one of the reasons why the grief recovery method for me was so effective is because when you think through things, when you go to a therapy, or even if you're doing tapping's fabulous. We've had Dimple on this. I've had interviews with Dimple. I've been on podcasts with her. She's a wonderful tapper. But if we don't know what we're tapping on, we're not going to get to that. So instead, our emotions, we've seen the meme where it's like tears are just love coming out of your eyes. Well, love has every single facet of emotion. And in my belief, that's what we're here to do as human beings. This is a spiritual being having a human experience. Do we have the courage to feel all that we can feel, and stop and go, oh, where's that coming from? And have the patience and the love for ourselves to be able to say, oh boy, my heart's heavy today. I'm going to take it easy. What are your thoughts on this, Heather?
Good. You just froze up there for a second. So I think I caught everything that you said, but I missed the last couple seconds there. So, but yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things with grief, is that people assume that grief is sadness, and grief is all negative emotions, but it's not. It's, as we say, it's the conflicting emotions that are caused by the change in or loss of a familiar pattern of behavior. And it's those conflicting emotions. So grief is happy, grief is sad, grief is, anger, and grief is all of those in betweens, right? And I think for a lot of people, you're afraid to feel happy when something happens, when when a change happens, that is, in society is supposed to be a sad thing, and you're afraid to think about the happy things that are connected. So if it's a person who's died, yes, you're sad that they're gone, but you're also thinking of the happy moments that you've had with them in the past and over the years, and grateful that you've had that time with them, perhaps. So and then you feel bad that you're happy, right? Like it's all that kind of back and forth. And I think that's the thing for me. When you talk about, love and whatnot, people often say that love and hate are the two sides, right? And for me, it's love and grief. Those are the two sides of the same coin. It's not love and hate. They're not the opposites. It's the love and grief are the two sides, right? You've got love on this side, you got grief on this side, and you can't separate them. They don't come apart. They're always connected. So yes, you're gonna have those happy moments, you're gonna have those sad moments with grief. You're gonna have everything in between and all those emotions. And I think the hardest thing for us as human beings to accept is that that's okay.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
okay to have those emotions. It's okay to have that variety. It's okay to have that, back and forth. And it's okay to experience those at any time. I remember being, and we've had this conversation before, that, death has not been an issue in terms of how either of us were raised, right? And I remember being at my grandfather's funeral, and I was in my 30s by then. And we were standing there, and we're standing at the coffin, and one of my younger cousins, I think, or I don't think it was my mom, but somebody was standing there and is like, what if he just popped up and sat up, and we started laughing, because it's totally the kind of thing he would do, right? It's just like, it was just totally the kind of joke that that somebody in our family might do, right? And it's like, and we had a good chuckle, right? And we had a good laugh. And some people would look at that and say, oh my God, what are you doing? It's a funeral, it's a visitation, you're supposed to be serious, you're supposed to. Well, no, we were there to, remember and celebrate. And yes, it was a visitation. And yes, we were all extremely sad that he was gone, because we loved him so much, and, still miss having him in our lives today. There's still things that we wish that he could be here to celebrate with us. But we were, remembering those, things, and remembering moments, and creating moments that he would have enjoyed, right? And had, he would have been right there with us, in that conversation if he was there. So, and I think that's the thing, is that people need to realize that it's okay. It's okay to have those kind of conversations, those kind of moments. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be in a place where you're like, I hate this, and this is terrible, and this should never have happened. It's also okay to say, um, I'm glad they're gone. If it was a not good relationship, right? It's okay to say, I'm glad you're out of my life, if it's an end of a relationship, not necessarily a death, just it's okay to have those back and forth relationships or emotions in a relationship. And I think everybody thinks it should be kind of one thing or the other, and it's cut and dried, and that's it. And it never is. I mean, emotions and relationships aren't cut and dried when we're living and when we're in them, and they're not cut and dried when somebody's dead or when we're out of a relationship. Those emotions don't suddenly click and become, emotion A and emotion B, and that's it. No, we've got emotions A to Z, and that's everything. Right?
Well, and that's why I think, a lot of times when it comes to a parental unit or a sibling, we may not have a good relationship with them now, but and maybe we haven't even seen them or dealt with them for years. Yet there's still something that happens when somebody dies, where the finality of it, and, the fact that it's never going to get better, because we can have this hope that, well, maybe I'm gonna get in touch with that person. And this is why, all the regrets that people have are for the things that they didn't do. I wish I stayed in touch with my friends. I wish, and I think that that's, even when we're gathering with people, the one thing that I know too about doing this kind of process is that it is a set of tools. It is not therapy. We're not going to get into what all of your emotions mean. We're going to create a space where you can feel, and maybe for the first time, be able to go, oh, that's what that emotion feels like. For me, like, I know that, like, I haven't expressed a lot of anger ever when I'm grieving. I have a deep sadness in the ones that have impacted me. Yet I'm feeling today, as I'm processing another kind of loss, and not somebody that's dead, but really I would say the end of a relationship as I knew it. And this is the very interesting part. We can have that friend that we've known since we were 2 years old or something. We grew up in the same street and we spend time with them. They may not be supporting us. We may not be supporting them and who they are today. And every time we get together, we tend to go back to who we were when we started that relationship. So you know, a lot of times for a friendship to go for a friendship to mature, right? And actually say, well, these people in my life, am I contributing to them? And are they contributing to me? Or are we just playing the roles that we always played? And we're not doing anything intentionally with intention. And so sometimes again, the conflicting feelings, and this is the end of a relationship as we knew it. So the difference and the thing that I find profound, especially based on the people, you know, I just talked to somebody who took grief recovery with us a while back, and she had another death, and that death was cleaner because she had done this other work where she had gone, oh, how am I looking at my experience as I go through the world? And this is the most powerful part of it. It's great to be mindful, but it's more important to be bodyful. It's great to do this, but when we live up here and we don't let the heart tell the story, then we're ripping off the biggest part of what makes us human. Because we know those stories of, you know, women, mothers that have ripped cars off their children. We know of those athletes. Joanne Fournette is one of them, who ended up getting an Olympic medal mere days after her mother died, and her taking all that and funneling it into her athletic endeavors, which is why athletes can a lot of times, because they're being active, a lot of times they can funnel their emotions into their sport, but not yet go in and say, okay, emotions, let's talk. Let's have a communication. Let's get to know each other better so that I can use you when I need to, but I'm also more balanced and not using you to hide because I love being athletic. What are your thoughts on that, Heather?
Yeah, I think that's very true. That yes, sometimes we either shove the emotion into something else or we bury it entirely. That's, I mean, obviously people are pretty aware of that, I think. But yeah, I think it's very true. Sometimes we shove that emotion into something else and it fuels what we need to do at that particular moment. And yes, athletes, I think, is a great example, but I think that's also true in other ways. You know, some people funnel it into making food, some people funnel it into reading, or some people funnel it into education, or, you know, you focus in on something that in that short term, and that short term might be, you know, a few years, but it you know, allows you that drive and that focus to accomplish something. But it is essentially just ignoring the emotional impact that it's had, right? And a lot of times we feel that because we've focused that energy into something, we've dealt with it. We've dealt with the emotion. And I don't think that's true. I think we've just funneled it someplace else and, you know, gotten that, what we call STIRB, that short-term energy releasing behavior, that short-term release. But it will come back in other ways, and it will come back in, you know, a way to, you know, either you're going to funnel it into something else, or you're going to actually, as you say, get to know the emotions and get to know that, have that conversation, right? So yeah, I think that's very true for a lot of us, that we do that. I certainly have in the past. I certainly recognize it now when I do it now. And not to say that I don't do it. Still, sometimes I do it, but I recognize when it's happening and realize that, yes, there's something I need to address. There's something I need to deal with. There's something I need to either talk about with somebody, or at least, you know, have a conversation with myself to say, what is it that's really happening here, kind of thing. So
And that's, you know what? I love that last part that you're talking about, that have a conversation with myself. And here's the thing that I want to encourage, because all these different emotions are there. And if we're just talking to ourselves, it's like if the tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it? And one of the biggest things that this process does is it allows you to see, you know, this isn't therapy like I'm having problems connecting with this person, or I have a specific outcome that I need. This is like, I want to take a look at my life and see how I'm showing up. And because you're going in without intention, that whole ignorance is bliss part where you come in and it's like, you don't have the time to get in your own way.
Yeah.
So you do, it's like, oh, but what does my heart say? Oh, you mean if I feel it in my head, that's not necessarily a good thing, because that's not feeling it. That's thinking it. And to be able to be guided in that, because again, you could do all of this on your own, but having the intentionality of, I'm going to say this out loud to somebody who is creating a space for me to say what I need to say.
Yes.
Censoring, and I'm not talking censoring all that. I mean, when we shut ourselves up.
Yeah.
You know, as we talked about in the beginning, you know, the fact, like, I remember after my mom had died and I was doing a really heavy duty project, and my mom knit those pussy hats for everybody. And I was on the way out. This is coming up to February. So my nanny, I already picked up the cottage cheese container when I was in the grocery store, and I saw her birthday. And it was the first birthday without her here on this plane with us. And I started talking to myself in the grocery store going, well, I knew it was coming. People think I'm nuts. I don't really care. But it was like, I didn't cry then because I was in a grocery store. It was inappropriate. But the most important thing that I didn't do was I didn't go home and immediately go, okay, what am I feeling? Or plan to be able to do that decompression. Instead, I kept going until this woman who does stand-up goes, oh yeah, and I'm going to use your mom's pussy hat. And that was the combination. These two women were my mothers, right? My biological mother and my emotional mother, for lack of a better term. And I just started crying because I hadn't given that emotion. I hadn't given it a label, not a label. I hate labels, but I haven't been able to say, oh, okay, melancholy, okay, sadness, okay, whatever that feeling is. And so instead it keeps coming out because it wants to come out. It wants to come out. And a lot of times we dismiss it. Oh, we're hormonal, our period's coming. And, you know, the awareness that you get from this, because even if you are hormonal, how are you managing that? Is that okay to be hormonal? Yeah. Am I going to go out and try and suck it up for everybody else? Or am I going to just, you know what, I'm just going to take it easy today because I know I'm not in my best space. Exactly. I'm not representing myself in the best way. And that's the really interesting part, is when we can, is all those different emotions. You know, the other thing is crying and, you know, laughing because you think of something and you wish your mom was here for her to, you know, for you to say that to her, you know. Or when I talk about death and, you know, my mother coming out when my stepfather had died and goes, it's just dawned on me, you might not have seen a dead body. And it's like, well, Mom, where would I have seen a dead body? You nurse who deals with it all the time. But that innocence from her became a family joke to us. And we laughed at the end of the day because it was like, that's just crazy, man. But that's her. So, you know, when we embrace, and this is the hardest part as a human, embrace all of us and all of everybody that we're dealing with, and be able to know that everybody is truly doing the best they can. Whether or not we understand their intentions, whatever they're doing, everybody's got stuff. Everybody. Yep. So that's it. Anyways, final words. I know it's so easy.
It's okay. I was just going to say that, you know, with the tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, doesn't mean the tree didn't fall.
Yeah.
Tree still fell. So you still have to give it the time. You still have to give it the space. You still have to address it. You still have to look at it.
Yes, and having somebody to just listen and then you listen to them and you know that we're all grievers. We are all grieving something.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be so much better? One of the recent people that took our course as well, our program, where she said, you know what, I wasn't feeling it, but I went to the party anyway, because we're human, as you said, it's going to happen. You're just more aware.
Yeah.
And she said, and I said that to my friend. And then surprisingly, she goes, and it's like, well, what happened? Well, they supported me. They all supported me. And it's like, if we don't have that vulnerability, like, I'm just not having a good day. Oh, and as long as we're not dismissing the fact that you're not entitled to have not a good day. It's been 2 years. Get over it.
Exactly.
But she said it was loving and supportive, because I believe most people want to support. They just don't know how, and we're not comfortable with having those conversations.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
When we get into work, we practice interviews. We practice going, we role play meetings before we go into big ones. When we're doing sales, you roll call what you're going to say, what the other person can potentially do. But we never do that with real emotions like grief.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like grief.
Because they're not supposed to happen.
And you're supposed to be over it in 5. No. And all this positivity stuff. Anyways, we could go on about positivity. Thank you, Heather. And again, we have sessions starting soon. So, and even if you just want to have a conversation, Heather and I are both here on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Well, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn. So, and you can follow Just Talking is on YouTube. And also Gwenda Connects is my handle for YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And you can get all my posts. All these videos are all available there. Heather, where can we find you on YouTube?
That's a good question. I have to look up my handle.
Okay.
But I think if you search Heather Lacey, you'll find me.
So Heather Lacey. And the other thing is that, again, Heather does lovely essential oils. She makes them herself. She blends them herself. She has some wonderful things. She also does Reiki, including distance Reiki. So if you're interested in those kind of healing modalities or soothing, because we talk about something called self-attention, which is really self-care elevated. So these are all part of those things. How do we love ourselves, right? So that's what Heather does as well. So thank you, Heather, for this wonderful talking. And I hope everybody had a great weekend. And again, get in touch if you want to learn more about Grief Recovery Method, or you can just get in touch with us and we'll take it from there. Okay, have a great day.